Welcome back to the Ghost Geeks. I'm Chad, and today we bring you part 3 in our 3-part series on REM pods. And now it's time for that geek dive. Previously, we talked about how the REM pod generates its own electromagnetic field, and that when the electromagnetic field of the REM pod gets interfered with, the antenna sends a voltage differential to a logic chip in the REM pod. Now, let's walk through the chips inside the REM pod that do all the logic and make these things work. Starting at the antenna, the voltage signal travels into the board and enters the NE555 timing chip on the trigger pin and the threshold pin. The trigger pin detects the voltage differential and compares that difference to the control pin's voltage input. If the logic of the control pin is met, then the bypass capacitor in this chip is allowed to connect, which sets the output pin to high and the discharge pin to open. The output pin's high signal is then transferred over to the PIC 12F508 chip. When the voltage differential no longer meets the control pin logic, the reset pin is triggered and the output and discharge pin are reset to low. This chip essentially monitors the signal from the REM pod's antenna and when triggered, sends the signal over to the PIC chip. The PIC 12F508 chip is an 8-bit flash microcontroller. This chip handles the modes and the frequency settings for the outputs of the REM pod. It uses the inputs of 2 push buttons to set the logic in the chip for volume, sensitivity, and sound mode, meaning this chip controls the way the output of the trigger is observed by us. If you really want to take a dive down a rabbit hole on these chips, then you should definitely watch this video on the internal components of the 555 timer chip and how the resistors and transistors create the logic of the chip. Understanding a little of this process will help you start learning to use these components in your own ideas. I hope to have several videos produced over the next few months to introduce everyone to the various components in electrical design so we can begin to create a community of open source ideas on building better equipment for our research. And now I'd like to leave you with this video from our collection where I build a REM pod board and put that into a stuffed animal to create a REM dog. Alright, now that we're at the desk, let's look at what we're doing today. So we have one of the REM pod kits, and we're going to just put this together, but we have a special edition today because I have a friend of mine who would like to turn this cute little corgi into a REM pod. So we're going to run the wiring through it so that if anything touches the outside of this corgi like it's petting it, it's going to light up in the front. We'll figure out where we're going to put the LEDs to make sure that we can see them real good. You got some white fur here. It should show through there really good, maybe in the face even, or even in the little legs right here. Just some places that we can find that it'll be really obvious when those LED lights go off. You don't want to put it back here because this is black. That'll be really hard to see even in the dark. With it lighting up, it'll be hard for the light to get out. But we're going to turn this corgi into a REM pod. So let's first switch over to the desk cam here. Let's get this open real fast. Remember, dull tools are what hurt people. So make sure your stuff is sharp. All right. Got a little bit of, we're going to replace that. So we got our circuit board. Easy peasy circuit board. It's labeled really well. We have our LEDs. There should be 4 of them. There we go. LEDs, 4 LEDs right there. And then the battery cable right here. Probably going to replace it with one of these so it gives the battery a nice home to sit in. If I don't like the way this sits inside the corgi, because it'll be hard to stitch this in, we are going to wind up using a sewing machine to cut open some seams and stitch things back together. But I want to make sure that the battery is easy to get to because everything else is going to be encased. I'm going to encase it in a Faraday bag so that it doesn't get interference, which is a really good thing. But the battery I want to keep outside of there because it is an energy source and there's wire with power running through it. I want to keep that out of it so that it only has to go in for the moment that it actually needs to connect to the circuit board. But you don't want your battery to get all gunked up with all the fuzz and stuff that's inside the animal. So let's get together and let's build this real quick. We got some resistors here. I will put up in the screen because here's your resistor. So I'll put up in the screen right here a diagram of how you can tell what resistor value is what, because you'll look at this and go, I have no idea what this is or what value that is. Here we have capacitors, and these are really, really tiny ones, and they're marked on them, and I'll have to probably use my little magnifying glass to read it. These are 10
microfarad units. So these are micros. So you see the U, that means it's micro. And the thing you got to really look for on these, let's see if this will even pick it up, is on the sides of these, there's a stripe, and that's your negative. So these are polar. So you have to put these in a positive and negative, and you have to put it in the right way. These, they don't care. They don't care. There's no that way. Same thing for LEDs. They require a positive and negative, and those are determined by the length of the tine. Which, so if you look here, see how one's longer than the other. Well, the longer one is positive, and the shorter one is negative. And then we have some chips. We have another capacitor. Boop. It's your product list there. There's a capacitor. And then the real fun one is we have a power regulator. This is a regulator. And it's probably not coming on there very good. There we go. I think it finally focused. All right. So now that we've got all of our parts laid out, buzzer, and then I'll just show you buttons and chips. Buttons and chips. Socket, microchips, buttons. So these are the integrated circuits. And then on the board, everything is labeled nicely where you need to put things. So it makes it really easy to figure out where things got to go. So let's, on that note, fire up the soldering iron. I got my helping hands, and I use these to clip parts too, so you can hold things together while you solder. I've got a nice little mirror on it with a light. It just makes life a little easier when you're doing this stuff. It's just, don't burn yourself, because you're gonna burn yourself. It happens. It happens to us all. Just waiting for the iron to heat up. And what are we at? Probably should check to see what it was the last time I put it on here. Tree 15320. That's about right for this solder. A lot of times the solder will tell you what temperature it likes. Sometimes it doesn't, so you need to look it up. This solder says it works best at 315, which is what we're at. It's lead-free solder. It has a little flux in it, but I like to add a little flux. It just helps keep things moving. Flux is basically solder lubrication. It helps the solder go where it needs to go much, much quicker. Okay, let's do a quick tip test and see if we're ready. See if you guys can see this. I'm just gonna touch the tip. Notice it's not melting yet, so we're not hot enough. We're not hot enough. Now we're hot enough. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just kind of give my circuit board a look over real quick and just kind of start lining up some parts. I think I wanna put on my sockets first. They got the most prongs and whatnot, so we just wanna line them up with the outlines. There's a little divot. So some of the things that I do is I'll use tape and whatnot to help get things on. But sometimes you don't need it. Sometimes things just sit right, and I'm just gonna give a little bit of flux there. This is a cleaning agent and flux, so it makes life really, really easy. There we go. Nice little triangles. Am I even in screen here? Now that we got those sockets in place, you can see we got the sockets in place. We're gonna go ahead and start adding our resistors. So yeah, so we're gonna start doing these. These are really easy. Doesn't matter which way they go. You're just gonna take it, and we're gonna come into here, and all you do is you just right through one hole and right through the other. I tend to actually bend these ahead because it's usually just a straight down bend and then right through the hole. It's that easy. Once you get it to the other side, it's a matter of just popping some solder on. I'm just gonna put a little brace under there so I know it's giving me some back pressure. Okay, little dot, clean the spot. There we go, and solder away. Go ahead and put your soldering iron. You'll see the little circle in there, the little metal circle. Just go ahead and touch that for a second. Let it heat up. If you let it heat up, then the solder is more likely to flow into where it needs to go. Because sometimes if you don't do that, it'll just clump up. Just leave it on there for a second, take it away, and boom, it just goes right on. Super easy. People make soldering out to be a lot harder than it should be. Then on here, we're just going to take this and boop, boop, like that. So now we just got to continue doing all the parts, and that's pretty much all there is to this. Is just whatever part says to go where. So now we're going to move on to R2. The R2 resistor is a 10K resistor, and so that's brown, black, orange. So brown, black, orange, there it is right there. Just take that one, same methodology. I just bend it over through the hole. It doesn't matter which direction it goes. They aren't polarity specific. And again, I like to give it just a little dot of cleaner. Makes it go real fast. And then just quick, put the soldering iron down. You'll see the flux sizzle. And if I can get the thing to get out of my way. All right, so we're just going to do these all at the same time. So this was 3, 6, and 7. And I'm going to put these all in at the same time because you can go faster like that rather than having to flip it over so many times. So 3, 6, and 7. There's 6. Those look like these are for the LEDs. Which seems a little low for an LED. But I don't remember what LEDs these are. I think they're 1/4 watt. We'll see. All right, so now we're holding true. Little dot, a little dot, a little dot, a little dot, dot, dot. Circle, circle, dot, dot. Time to get that cootie shot. Here we go. So now we're going to work with our little bitty capacitors, these little guys right there. And these go in the C2 and C3 location. They are both the same. This one you do have to watch out for. So on the board you'll notice there's a negative sign. So it tells you where the negative post goes. So I'm going to look for the negative post on there. There it is with my little stripe. And the little stripe goes to the negative side. Just that easy. Just that easy. Negative side. Just get them down there. And here we go. Good little triangles. Sometimes you feel like, you know, Bob Ross the painter there. Just trying to make pretty little triangles. Little conal pyramids. It's not a pyramid, it would just be a pointed cone, right? That's what it should look like when you're done. Nice little cones. Okay, so now we're gonna put on. Let's see, we already did the sockets. Let's do the LEDs. Let's do the LEDs. So we got. Actually, no, let's not do the LEDs because we're gonna have to do some modifications. Because again, we're not just making this straight off, we're gonna make this into the REM pod. So we're gonna save the LEDs for last because I need to know how long of wiring I need and where I'm gonna put them in our new REM dog. So I think what's gonna happen is the control board is gonna sit here in his tummy somewhere. And as silly as it sounds, we're probably gonna have the on and off switch right here by his butt. I know that's on off, right? But it's better than letting things dangle. And I think with the way this is sewn, it kind of gives us a nice little circle. Sadly enough, it's kind of funny. And I don't have to cut open straight sheets of the fabric here and stitch it back because that can create problems because a lot of times in these types of animals, the material here is really porous. And so once you start making cuts to it, it just kind of like zippers apart because it's almost like perforated. So we're gonna try to avoid that. So I'm just gonna try to take off his seams later and do that. So we'll save the LEDs for later. Let's do the regulator. So we have our voltage regulator, which is this guy right here. Now on this guy, they're not always like this. Sometimes they're all circles. Sometimes they have that little flat spot. But in any case, the way that you do it is on this one is the way that the board's set up. So if you look at the board has a flat side. So you put flat side to flat side and then just slide your pins through the hole in the appropriate order. So nothing crazy. Pow, right? Right on over, and let's solder this down. The buzzer, we will put the buzzer on, and again, this doesn't have a polarity. It doesn't care. So it just goes right on through. So that's all done. Buzzer's done. There wasn't anything to clip off on that. The other thing that we have to do is the capacitor here. Let's see. This is a non-polar capacitor, so it doesn't matter. So we'll just toss that in there. All right, so we're going to take our push buttons and just feed those right on through. There you go. Those kind of want to almost automatically grab on because they've got a weird little foot on them. So these are just and/or gates, basically. All right, got them in. Here we go. A couple quick solders. This is super easy. As soon as you get things flowing, you'll just get the hang of it, and you'll figure out about how much it takes. It doesn't take a lot of solder. You just want to see it flow and then pull away, and it should go whoop and suck right back up, and you should end up with some really pretty joints. So now the mode buttons are there. The only thing we have left are the LEDs, the batteries, and the antenna, and those are things we have to do with the dog. So we're gonna take a break. I'll be right back because we have to do some surgery. Welcome back. Had to take a quick pause there. You can see outfit change, right? Gotta have an outfit change. It's time to do some surgery on our little corgi. So looking at how this guy's gonna sit, he's gonna stand when in use so that a potential spirit child can pet him. And I'm thinking LEDs are going to go in the front of the chest. Maybe we'll put one in the face, 2 in the chest, or maybe put them in the paws down here. But these paws are actually kind of stiff, so it doesn't feel like there's structure. I think it's just there's so much stitching here and here that it gives this leg some rigidity so that it can stand. So I don't want to interfere with that. So we may just keep the LEDs right across the front, like maybe put up one in his face and 1, 2, 3 across his chest, or put one high enough up here maybe or something that you can see it from behind it instead of just in front of it. But I like the way this guy looks, so I think we're gonna just put some LEDs right here. So maybe 1, 2, or maybe put them on each side of his cheek. Let's do that. Each side of his cheek and then in his chest, and that way this whole region lights up. The first thing we're gonna have to do is become a proctologist. And we got to find the seam here to open up his little hiney. Because what I think we're going to do is we're going to make a cavity right here in his tummy. And we're going to use some static bag. We're going to put the board in that so the board doesn't get static. And then we'll line the inside of it with an antenna. And we'll sew up some Velcro here so you can have easy in and out to open it up and close it back. And then what I think I'll do is right here on the back of his leg in this, I can feel the stitch right here. I think this is where I'm going to open it up and put in the on-off button. So she can click and turn it on right here on the back side of the leg. There's no really other good place to put it that isn't going to compromise some of this fabric and this fur. Because we've worked with this fur when we make costumes too, and once you start cutting it, it kind of falls out along the edge, and I don't want to do that unless I absolutely have to. So once I get this part opened, I'm going to measure this to, 1, make sure that our little board can squeeze in here and not and still be velcroed up once I get it inside. And then I got to find this seam and really make sure that I can get an on-off button here and find that seam real good. So that's what we're going to do now. Okay. Just get in here and look. Okay, there's the seam. I wish I could find the last seam, because the last seam is always an outside seam, because you have to sew these inside out and then you flip them. All right, it's got about an 1/8" mat on it. Got it. There's the seam. All right, if my blade isn't cutting that, that means it's time to redo the blade. Okay, first of all, always dispose of your blades because you don't want to have blades just out and about. It's not safe, and you'll regret it one day. Don't ask me how I know. All right, rinse and repeat. Let's find that seam again, and we'll get in here and open this seam up. A lot of times I will use a beard brush on these guys, because a beard brush has got really good stiff bristles, and it does really good at cutting these down and moving those. Boop. You just have to be really careful with a sharp X-Acto knife. You can cut yourself really easily, and there we go. This seam should just come apart now. They usually don't put much anything on these seams to give them any rigidity once they lose a stitch. So, which means when I get done stitching it, it's going to be better than factory. Just taking care not to destroy the fabric. It's okay to cut the string that's in there, but try not to do more harm than necessary. I'm just using the tip of the X-Acto knife to move hairs out of the way so I get a good clean cut. Yeah, some of the stitches will just come right out for you. Some of them you'll have to cut. It just depends on the luck of the draw, really. But it's not hard. You just have to know when to stop. I need to go all the way to this corner here, so I've kind of keep my thumb on that spot where I need to stop, so I can always be aware. This looks totally ridiculous, I know. But the things we do for our REM pods, right? Okay, so this is where we're just going to do a quick test fit to see if we can get this in and out. No, we need to give it a little more space. I don't want it to be super loose. Again, let the jokes roll. Put them in the comments, because it's hilarious to me, and I'm sitting here trying to keep a straight face saying some of this stuff. But let me know what you think in the comments. Is it too much now, or am I just shitting on myself? Oh. There we go, and we're down to his heel. I think that gives us plenty for everything we need to do. Quick test. Says, yep, it can go in, and we're good. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is, this is the part poor little guy's gonna experience a little bit of trauma. I'm gonna have to get my fingers up in here like this and see about how much length I'm gonna need to get all the way to his face with some LEDs, and then we'll make some LED wire. So, in fact, let me. Is that flex line? Yeah, that's flex line. Let's do that. Let's do We know we're gonna have to go from about here to here, so that'll work. And you need the same amount. I like to use 2 different colors just so you can keep track of positives and negatives. It does matter on an LED because each LED in the board is going to be wired with a resistor, and the LED itself has a positive and negative. So let's measure this out real quick. How much did we take? 11 inches. Okay, cool. So I'll just do a couple of these real quick. Okay, 4. We got all of our wire. So now I've got my wire pieces, and we're going to basically prep these. So what I need to do now is trim off the ends and apply some solder. So we're going to take a quick break because I got to turn the soldering iron on like that, and I got to go wet my sponge and get everything ready. So we'll be back in just a second. All right, back at it. We're going to use this little stripper because it's honestly, with this really flimsy wire, the other one is a little rigid and it's a little harder to control. So we'll just slide this in. I want to give myself, I don't know, for the part that's going to go on the board, it doesn't have to be much, but for the part that's in the LED, I want to give myself a good, I don't know, what is that, about a 1/2 inch? Yeah, about a 1/2 inch. Because the leads on the LED are pretty long and we're going to cover them up anyway. So just and I felt it go that time, so boom. And then on this end, we only need about 1/4 inch, or if that. And I felt it. All right. So I'm gonna prep these real quick and we'll be back. My other stripper is in the hangar right now because we were doing a lot of work on airplanes. Rewiring some stuff in the airplanes, and I left my strippers there, so I have to use my backup stripper here. Not a big deal. It's not like it's going to save me that much more time on such small runs of wires. You know, if I was doing 30 or 40 of these, I would want my real strippers because it's just pow, 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 pow. But with this small, it's not a big deal. But invest in the tools if you're going to do this. It does make a difference in your sanity. Just putting that out there. All right, so one thing we have to be aware of is in this board, we've already put the resistors in line in the board, so we're not going to add new resistors to these. In some cases, I've had to put the resistors down here and then we lead the wire all the way out there. But in this case, the resistors are on the board. We don't have to add any more resistors. This is just pure wiring at this point. So the long one is positive, the short one is negative. So I think for positive, I always associate positive to red. So that's going to be my go-to here. So I'm going to wire these up real quick, and then I'll show you this one, and then we'll break for a second and do the rest of them really quickly. I always like to just get a little solder on my wire. There it goes. Okay. And so you get them done and Bob's your uncle. Now I'll also put on this heat sink. So this will slide up there and we'll actually trim this off and down a little bit and make sure that everything's nice and good here in a minute. So we're gonna fast forward to the next part. All right, here we are. We have 4 wires all wired up. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to cover these contacts, because what you don't want to happen is these get squished and touch each other because you short them out. And that's a bad thing. Short circuits are a bad thing. Let's put this over there. So we're going to take our shrink tubing and we're just going to run it up the cable real quick to see how much we're going to need. So I want to cover all the way to the base. So there you go. I just put a little crimp in it. Come over here. Find my little crimp mark, slice. It goes on the white one. So now you just run it up, cover it up, and it'll look like that. It'll look like that. So now when I heat shrink that, it's going to cover all the contacting metal. And we don't have to worry about it short circuiting. So here we go, next one over. Now I could have made these even shorter, and sometimes I do, but when I do these rim dogs like this, I like to leave them a little long so they have a little rigidity. And the reason for that is when they got a little rigidity in there, they kind of get lodged in that foaming a little better so they don't move. If you get it really short, then the LED tends to wiggle around, and you want to really kind of point it at the front of the face so that you get the most light coming out of it. And if you don't have anything that's a little stiffer here in the back, that LED over time tends to just roll up and roll away because there's nothing kind of giving it some purchase power inside the animal there. So I got that one prepped. We're going to move on to the next one. Rinse and repeat. We're just going to take the same tubing and figure out how much we need and then move on from there. It's my daughter, if you can't hear her. She's an artist. She's making shoes right now for a costume. So is that one going to be long enough? Nope, not quite long enough. We'll get a new tube. Save that for another day. And don't throw away your trimmings because you can use them some other place, and trust me, you will. All right, there we go. And it's right about there. So we'll get these all prepped, and then we'll use the heat gun on them and seal them up so that everything's nice and good here. So there's another one done. You know what? I don't like that. We're going to resolder that one just a little bit. A little more play than I want in that wire. So let's do this. Yep, I figured that was going to come off. Oh yeah, good hard tug. It didn't go nowhere that time. Now, if you ever do that, cool it off, because if you try to get that heat shrink on there while that's hot, it's going to go and suck onto it, and you might not get it into the place you wanted. So make sure that's cool to the touch before you go trying to slide any heat shrink over any of that, because it will do that. These don't have to be exact. All you want to do is make sure that you've overlapped the wire just a smidge, so that way you don't have any exposed metal. Because like I said, all you're doing here is trying to prevent a short. And if any of those wires or poles get across, you will get a short. So you don't want that. All right, and last one, and then I'll break out the heater. You can even do this with a soldering iron if you don't have a heat gun. You know what? I'll do it that way so you can see how that's done. Show you how to do it with just a soldering iron. You do not have to buy a heat gun to do this. So in fact, I'm going to take this one and let's do this. So with the soldering iron, what you're going to do is you're going to get on the tip right here, and even right here. You can do it with just this part too. It's still pretty darn hot. I don't know if you can see that, but here I'm going to just wave it on there. You can kind of see it starting to shrink. The heat's pretty strong there. So let me do it this side, do that. You don't want to get too close to the tip because it'll melt it. It will. So real fast, just real fast. You're just letting the ambient heat do that. If you try to do it too long, you're going to melt it and you're going to have problems. So just quick waves, magic wand, quick waves. And there, that one's heat shrunk. Do another one real quick. Push them all the way to the top, get them started, do. Flip them over, let that stuff get it. Boom, there it goes. Started to grab there. We'll get down at the bottom where it's really gonna pinch. There we go, there we go. Now you can wave it all the way around and bada bing, bada boom. There's another one done. Again, you don't have to have a heat gun to do this. It does go a little faster with the heat gun because you basically pull the trigger, count to 2, and it's pretty much done. You can do this with a lighter. Not my preferred method because the lighter brings in its own problems. If you don't have a clear open space, then a lighter can melt something around it and you're not even aware of it. This method could do the same thing if you're not careful. Like if you're trying to do this in a tight space, then you could end up, you know, melting something. Like I've done that with 3D printed boxes. Do I have that one right here? Yeah. Check this out. On this shadow box. I don't know if you can see that, but that little mark right there, that was from the soldering iron. That's why I make practice boxes, you know. That's why we run through the whole setup of them to see what's the best method of assembly. So if you have to build one of these by yourself, because it's one of the things I'm thinking about doing is offering all my 3D print files and everything so people can make their own stuff at home. Just buy the file and reproduce or whatever. So that's pretty much all we do. Now we're going to take the board and we're going to attach to our LEDs right here. So the thing you're going to have to watch out for is on these, I believe the line side. Yeah, the line side. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's a circle with a line on one side of the circle that's tangent to the top or the bottom. And the line side is the negative side. So when we solder these, the white side will go to the line side. So I'm going to just prep the board here and know that my first one, which is my top one, the white one needs to come in on the inside of the board. So we're just going to come over here. And again, I like to prep these before I put them through. So white's going to go first. We're going to get a little solder on it. So let me do this here real quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the solder and I'm going to get the tip of this hot. And then I'm just going to work the solder onto the tip of my, just like that. So now I can come in here and hopefully just slide it right through the hole. Ta-da! One down. All right, we'll do the same thing for red now that it goes on the other side. So just put a little dab of solder on it so we don't get the fray. And then you stick it right through the hole. All right, this board's holes are really tight. It's usually not this tricky to get these to go. There we go. All right, first LED is attached and we're just gonna rinse and repeat. And these actually go back and forth, so I know that the next one, the red's gonna go in on the bottom side here, the way that I have this set up. So we're just gonna get it prepped and ready to go here. And all of our lights are wired up. Dingly dingly, an octopus garden, yay. All right, so the only thing left to do now is to attach our battery and our antenna. And we are going to use this for a battery. It's going to make changing it a lot easier. So this is real simple. This just goes up and in so that you don't yank your battery terminal out. Time to get the black one on there. So again, you go up through the hole and you come back around the corner. This just gives a little tightness on your battery cable so that it's the one part that's going to keep getting yanked over and over and over again. So it's best to give it a little something to push and pull against rather than just the solder joint itself. And ta-da! All right, so now we have battery, now we have lights. The only thing left to do is add the antenna. But with the antenna, the trick is we need enough wire, and we want to use some slightly rigid wire. So the stuff that I'm working with these isn't going to be what we need. So I got to go over to the wire drawer here and get, I thought I already had a pack of this open. Nope. Okay. We'll just take it out of here then. Oh, nope, that's flex wire too. There's the rigid wire. I knew I had some somewhere. So, I don't know how much I'm going to need, but we're going to grab a whole big chunk of it. And this is solid core wire. This is the good stuff. So I'll run that through that when I get it done, and then we just got to stuff. And we're back again. Another day, another shirt. Gotta love the Ghostbusters with the dead ghost in the ghost trap. Yeah, that's fun. All right, so now we're gonna line the puppy with some antenna wire. So I'm gonna just break that off my board. Like I said, I barely tacked that in. And what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna take this and stuff him. This is gonna be fun because he's a weird little animal. Just want to make sure I've got a good halfway mark here. That way I know where my boundaries are. It just helps for trying to keep the antenna symmetrical. So when you can't really get in there and see stuff, you just kind of want to have an idea of where it is. So we're going to feed this all the way up. And I want to get this outside of all the stuffing. So get it outside all the stuffing here. And I mean, there's really no other way to do this besides, you know, just manhandling the dog here. We're gonna cut to the end process of this because all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run this antenna up to the tip of his nose, and then I'm gonna split it around to go down his face and loop around his back and come back out his butt. That way I can solder it up, finish, and slide it in. Sexy, isn't it? Final steps. We're gonna put everything in a static bag and then put that inside of a Faraday bag. Yep, I protect the board from all the possible doohickeys that might want to interfere. I run the battery through the bag so that the battery doesn't interfere as well, because we don't want possible battery leaks and things like that to interfere with any of our fun stuff. So we'll get everything in the bag, and then I'll seal this bag up with the heat gun. It's pretty simple. And just to kind of give a quick test of how this is all going to work, once I get it all shoved inside and everything positioned, turn it on, and then now the REM dog is good dog, good dog, good dog. That's how we do it. It's pretty simple. And now we test it in the dark so we can see it better. Good boy, good boy. And there you have it, a REM dog. Be sure you like and subscribe if you like this, because that'll help us know to bring you more of these types of videos in the future. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you for watching our series on REM Pods. Until next time, I'm Chad with the Ghost Geeks, and remember, talk nerdy to me.